You need Jameis as upfront in your face as possible.
I mean, because that's how it feels when he's probably giving you his pregame speech.
Did you see he was doing the speech and he was like, the decals on your helmet. Wait, we don't have those. And then he just like kept going through.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah, he was like, you got to play for the names on the back of your jersey. For the something on your helmet. He goes, wait a minute.
We don't have decals on our helmets.
Let's bring in Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show. Dan, did you ever give one of those pregame speeches to your team when you were starting? Did you ever do one of those, Dan?
In college, for sure. In the NFL, no. I wasn't. I wasn't that person in the NFL. I think most of the time, Rich, when I was starting, it wasn't a great situation. They're like, hey, we're 0-9. Let's go win a game, boys. So in college, for most of my college time, for sure. But I think in the NFL, I shied away from those.
What'd you see from Jameis because again, that was the general sense as we were watching Deshaun Watson struggle, is that Winston would look better. No Amari Cooper, change of play caller, in comes Jameis, and voila. Is that as simple, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, one, we know that there's always, when the quarterback change happens, it feels like instant better performance by everybody on the football team, certainly the offense. We've seen that a couple of times. I think the big thing is, and Jameis kind of intimated it, I believe, after the game in a post game, when he said, when I'm making consistently great decisions, I'm a very good starting quarterback. And that's really how it played out. Like he made a ton of really good decisions with the football. I think the second thing is he gave guys chances. When you play a quarterback, when you play with conviction and you play with confidence, and the literal way that plays itself out, Rich, is you are getting the ball out of your hands quickly. And that makes, so number one, the offensive line has to protect shorter because the ball's coming out. Number two, the most open guys are in the NFL is immediately out of their break. It's not like they get more open after getting out of their cut. And so when you're throwing it with conviction and on time, the receivers have a little bit more space, or they can adjust to the football a little bit. So I think he gave some guys some chances. It could also be said that in my opinion, what the Ravens did specifically at the end of the football game was odd to witness, running 6 straight all-out pressures with man coverage with 2 defensive backs who are starters not in the game. So Jameis was wildly impressive, and he's easy to root for.
Yeah, so is it sustainable, do you think? Like, do we see like what we saw from Flacco last year? We're going to see it again here? I
don't think
Cleveland?
That performance is sustainable because, again, I think teams are going to play a little bit more tactical in certain situations, a little bit more measured. When you're getting all out pressure, it's like just throw it to a guy and hopefully he wins, or you could block it up, or you make a play in space. I think teams will be a little bit more reserved with kind of the coverages that what they want to play. Again, he gave guys chances in one-on-one situations. The Njoku touchdown, he makes the play. Those aren't consistently plays that are going to get made. That's just not the NFL. It's just throwing it up for grabs. And I don't want to say he did that, but you're not constantly going to win those one-on-one kind of 50-50 balls. So I do believe an uptick of performance when in comparison to what Deshaun was doing. Absolutely. I don't know if they're going to go score 30 a game, and that's sustainable now.
Meanwhile, Dan Orlovsky in Indianapolis, you've got a young quarterback whose growth was stunted due to injury last year, and Anthony Richardson now getting the reps he sorely needs. I mean, the reps that he sorely needs, and showing some inconsistent play, to say the least, with the latest example being that awful throw he tossed towards the end of the first half in Houston that cost him 7 points. On top of him being honest and saying, I took myself out for one play because I got tired. And there's now a major hue and cry to say, let's go with Joe Flacco there. What are your 2 cents on this subject matter, Dan?
I got a lot more than 2 cents, okay? So I think a lot of the conversation over the last 36 hours around this is a little bit extreme. All right, so one, Rich, there are 2 different situations. The tapping yourself out and the play. The tapping yourself out, I think everybody to a man can't do it. It's inexcusable. You as the quarterback, you are the unwavering leader of the football team. You have to go put it on the line every single moment. I disagreed with what he does in that moment. I don't think he needs to get benched for it. I do think he needs to grow up from it. I do think he needs to mature from it and kind of feel and understand the gravity of that role. And hopefully that's a big turning point of his career. I've seen a lot of people say bench him. I disagree with that. I think that's way too extreme. Now the play, because these are two different conversations. Mm-hmm. The Colts are in a tough spot, Rich. It is fair to say that it's better right now for this team in this moment to have Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback. Yes, that is fair because Joe is right now a more consistent player. It's also at the same time necessity that he plays. He has not played much football since high school, let alone college. He has to develop. He can't Trey Lance this. He can't go years and years and years without playing football. The only way at that spot to get better is being in those game environments. He's playing catch-up reps-wise. There's been roller coaster performance this year. There's questions I've had of 2 weeks ago. I watched, why aren't you playing better? Why aren't you developing? This is the Miami game. Mm-hmm. And then this past week when he has the terrible box score, I actually think he plays significantly better than the box score shows. I'm going to do a tape on NFL Live today. Realistically, Rich, there are 6 throws that he makes in that game that all 6 can and should be caught. And all 6 of them are probably another 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. No one just made a play outside of Josh Downs one time. So, again, I don't think it's a perfect, it's the perfect answer for the situation for the Colts. But I do think this weekend's performance on tape was so much better than what the end result box score said.
That said, if you put Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings coming off of 2 losses in 5 days, if you put him on sodium pentothal right now and asked him, wouldn't you want Anthony Richardson to keep at it instead of Joe Flacco for Sunday night? He'd say, absolutely. I'd love for the Colts to try to keep developing this guy. He doesn't want to see Flacco. He'd put the kid out there again, Dan, right? I mean, don't you think anybody would?
Because I think right now for this team, in the perfect world, you would have Joe starting. But because Anthony's past is what it is, Anthony wasn't this guy that was, a 3-year starter in college or has built up thousands of reps in college. He doesn't. And so that's why this situation is what it is. I thought it would be a little bit more advanced, the development. Bomani Jones reacted because I sent out on Twitter today, Rich, hey, the tape is significantly better. And I thought he brought up a fair question. He said, okay, but this is the same stuff that was being said about him in college. How come it continues to happen? And I responded back with, okay, number one, it takes reps to get better. It just does. Number two, a lot of it is, well, that throw's dropped. It's a 30-yard touchdown. But how come it was dropped again in the NFL and it's dropped in college? Are the receivers that he plays with always bad? Or, can there be a little bit more touch on the football? Almost like what's happened a little bit with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, Josh Allen earlier in his career. Can the ball get out a fraction of a second sooner? Can you place the ball maybe 1 foot in front rather than on the face mask? There's a lot that's attached to it. That the young man, you certainly see flashes, but I still believe he's got to play. Now he's got to do the work. I have no idea if he is. I'm not in the building, but he's got to do the work on a day-to-day grind basis for sure.
Dan Orlovsky from ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show. What are you seeing out of Dak and Dallas at a crossroads right now, 3-4?
It's the chicken and the egg for me. Is the quarterback playing poorly because the scheme stinks, or does the scheme stink because the quarterback's playing poorly? Okay, it's never black and white, either one. But I battle between why is Dak not playing the way that we're accustomed to, and then is Dak playing a little bit less because I don't like this offensive scheme? There's 2 teams that I hate watching their offensive tape right now. It's the Jets and the Cowboys. The way I talked about, I know that's a tough shot for you.
No,
I think the way that
it's all right, man. That's where I was going to go next. Go ahead.
I see the Cowboys offense is like lined theme paper. Just everything's a straight line. And they're so dependent on lining up and being execution dominant. You have to go out execute on a play-to-play basis for the play to be successful. We are in an era where coaches are building in ways, whether it's formations or personnel groupings or motions or action, where their execution's still paramount, but like I want to say like the ability to execute is enhanced. They're making it easier for those guys to execute. I just saw Schefter's tweet. Sorry, that's why my pause was.
Worries.
And so I think it's just it's a very schematically boring offense that puts too much pressure on everybody executing consistently.
Well, the tweet that you're referring to, I guess we have to now cycle back, Dan, that the Colts are benching Anthony Richardson. And you think that is what? A mistake?
I don't know. No, because I get it. You got to win. I understand that you want to win. It's going to hinder his development. It absolutely is going to hinder his development. I think I don't know if it's attached for Shane Steichen, their head coach. Is it attached to the play or is it attached to that moment? We got to get that answer. I do think that it's hard for him to continue to develop the in-game skills needed to play at a higher level if he's not playing. And I think that the Shane is realizing, I got a good enough team. Like, we can go win ball games. And right now, he believes that Joe is probably better suited to go get that done.
And I'll tell you, I'm sure if you had a GoPro on Kevin O'Connell, he's like, damn it. Seriously. I mean, because
sure.
to have an old head and rejuvenated arm, if that's even a phrase or appropriate for Joe Flacco, that's the last guy I'd want to see under center against me on a Sunday night. But circling back in the few minutes I have left with you, you were talking about the Jets being a frustrating watch. Aaron Rodgers saying that this offense can and should put up 30 every game. Why aren't they then, Dan?
Well, it's the same issues. Okay, so number one, the main reason is there's very little detail attached to this offense, and it's across the board. One, the offensive line in the run game doesn't go to the right people consistently. They very rarely, I've said this for weeks, that they don't go to we call the second level. They run, linebackers run free, so there's not a consistency to their run game. Two, the tight ends cannot run block. And I've argued, instead of putting a tight end to run the football, do what Buffalo does, and they put a sixth offensive lineman on the field. So what if there's a predictive element of it? Just sprinkling enough of play action off of it, again, like Buffalo does. So that's a part of the issue in the run game. In the pass game, one, there's not a ton of winning on the outside, if I'm being candid. It's not like Garrett and Devontae are getting open consistently. Now, I would argue that there's standstill a lot, and it's harder to do. And then Aaron just does not throw the football over the field right now. He just won't. The only time that I watch Aaron look like Aaron, when it's like you watch him about to throw and you be like, yep, here it comes, is when the ball is going to the perimeter. Over the middle field, there's a doubt, there's a hesitancy, and there's a lack of conviction with what he's looking at. And I think that makes his feet a little bit more uncertain, and maybe it's not wanting to get hit. Maybe it's he's already banged up, so he doesn't want to. And so there's no consistency to the sequencing of events on their offense.
So they're not beating man coverage, is what you're saying? Press coverage outside, the two guys that Rodgers needs to win these matchups, and that's why they got Devontae Adams. You're not seeing that, Dan, on film?
Not consistently, no. I mean, not consistently. There's occasional moments, and there's also occasional moments where I thought this past weekend Aaron had 4 or 5 throws. You're like, man, that's
the guy,
pure, yeah. And so there's nothing that they, and I would make the claim right now, and it's surprising, I don't think there's anybody that they can hang their hat on. I don't think there's a thing that they do or a person that they can turn to where they can hang their hat on when the going gets rough, or they got to get something going and say, let's do this, or let's go to this guy. That's just not there right now.
So who's playing this position the best right now? Josh Allen, Jared Goff, Lamar? Who would you say?
Josh, Jared, Lamar, Kyler Murray's playing phenomenal football right now.
No kidding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Kyler Murray's playing very good.
Well, I know they're 11 for 11 in goal to go situations for touchdowns. I know that in Arizona they're scoring when they're goal to go.
And it's a big reason why is because of him. Rich, if we just came into the season, if you were the Cardinals and you said, I asked Jonathan Gannon this actually, what were the goals for the season realistically? It's one, be competitive in December. Now they've been decimated by injuries. We're a month from December and they're in first place. They're 4-4. So that's a check. Huge win.
Yep.
2, Tyler, after the injury, second-year system, make the questions or I guess the uncertainty of can you develop and really become the guy? I think he's answering those present day. And then 3, get Marvin to settle in as being a difference maker on the perimeter. And there has been some moments where I've been frustrated by that, but also you saw it this past week, like just throw the ball to that guy. So, yeah, Kyler's playing at a very high level.
Didn't mention Jaden Daniels. I forgot to mention him.
Yep. Right? He's up there. He's in that MVP conversation. Jaden is one guy changed the whole place. It's crazy. Again, just like Houston last year with CJ, one guy has changed the trajectory of that organization. I think Jalen Hurts the past 3 weeks has been really good, really encouraging because his first 3 or 4 weeks this season were not good.
He hasn't.
Stafford last week was great.
Yeah, he hasn't. Hurts hasn't turned it over since the bye, and then Stafford. I mean, dude, that's just the only word I have when watching him when he's on, and Kupp and Nakua are there, and Kyron Williams is a touchdown maker of the first variety. We were talking the other day. Name me a quarterback, running back, and 2 wide receiver spot that you'd prefer. There's Philly, right? When they're working.
Philly.
Right now,
Yep.
Other than that, I mean, you got to put the Rams in that conversation right now.
I would go a step further. I in my gut believe if they stay healthy, they win the division, and they are the tough out in the NFC outside of the Detroit Lions. In my gut, totally believe that. I think their young defensive line is the best young defensive line in ball. And just watching how they can and want to play offensively, I think they can control the football. The quarterback's playing just as good as he did last year. They just got to stay healthy. And that's the big question mark. Can they and can those perimeter guys? But there's no one I believe in more when it comes to, like, can they get it done really outside the Rams and the Lions offensively.
How about that? Last one for you is Russ reborn. He does look good, right? First 2 games.
He's the best I've seen him look since 2021. And that's surprising. I was wrong on Russ. I did not believe that Russ would throw it the way that he's throwing it right now. The crosser to Washington, the touchdown to Pickens that gets called back because he gets 2 right feet in instead of 1 right, 1 left, which doesn't make sense to my brain. The touchdown to Austin, the ball down the sidelines to Pickens, for the big chunk near the end of the football game. He's just flat out throwing it significantly better than I expected. Yeah, absolute hats off to him and Mike Tomlin.
Right. I mean, he does look like the guy, and he's moving well too, right? And he's not just moving well and taking off. He's keeping his eyes up, and he's seeing the field in a way that in 2 games, I know it's just 2, but that's the way it looks to me. That's why I wanted to confirm it with you.
Yeah, he's played very, very high level football since he's become the starter 2 weeks ago. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Have a great NFL Live, Dan. You know how much I cherish whenever we have a conversation here. You make me smarter. And
Same here, brother.
Great.
I'm grateful.
Take care. Right back at you, Dan
Thanks,
Orlovsky.
buddy.
You guys, that's Dan Orlovsky heading off on his rest of his day, going on to NFL Live, where that'll be a subject matter, will it not? Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.